Salute, BookTube. Welcome to my channel, The Saracens Salute. I thought I'd make a video. I'm going to post this on a Tuesday, and usually Tuesdays are reserved for tags. It's Tag Tuesday. I haven't been specifically tagged in anything, but I thought I would make a special video related to the reading events for September. There's two big major reading events in September. One of them is Shorty September, where you're encouraged to write, or not to write, but to read a book, a short book or a novella. And the general parameters, the rules are you have to read a book that is generally under 200 pages. Of course, the organizers of the event are very flexible. You can go to 250-ish, but generally it's under 200 pages is recommended. The other reading event is Shaktember, where you read Shakespeare in September. And what I decided to do, if you see my previous videos, was to link the two, to combine the two. So I'm reading short plays of Shakespeare in September. So if you just saw my last video, I just finished and reviewed this book. It's The Tempest by William Shakespeare. This is a very, it's a Penguin Popular Classics made from recycled paper. Really not the greatest edition to read Shakespeare. Really poor edition, but I have a bunch of others. So I thought I would read one book of Shakespeare a week in September for four books or four plays. So I just finished The Tempest. I've got three others, which I hope I'll make videos for in the near future once I finish reading them. But this is what I've been reading for Shorty September. But for this video, I wanted to do something a little bit different and mention another author who's written quite a few short works of, it's more journalism, but his books are quite short. And I wanted to discuss them now. The reason why I wanted to discuss this author is I have a bunch of his books which are still unread. I don't think I'll be able to get to them this September for Shorty September, but maybe next September, if not before that, I will. But I wanted to talk about this specific author because I have spoken about him in one of my previous videos, in my back catalog of videos. And I actually, he's a Polish author, a Polish journalist. And I completely messed up the pronunciation of his name, especially his first name. And it was actually Angelina at the BookTube channel Books Do Things to Me who pointed out my error. And I feel kind of bad, so I'm kind of doing this as a kind of penance for the error that I made last time. And I hope just to A, get his name right, but B, also discuss some of his books for the general BookTube audience. And the fact that his books are short, it's a good time to do it now in Shorty September. As a matter of fact, before I get to his books and discuss who that author is, I didn't have any excuse to make that mistake because I actually have a book. I had met somebody here where I live, and for those who don't know or who are new to the channel, I live in the heart of the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates. And I met somebody, a nice lady who was from Poland, and we got to talking and we became quite good friends. It turns out we have a lot in common. She's also quite intellectual. I'm not very intellectual, I just like reading nonfiction and history. So we got to talking, we became friends. She went back to Poland. She was visiting here on an internship in Dubai. So she left, but she came back again for another visit, and she got me a gift. And this is the gift. It's a very pretty book. It's in pink color. The title is Quarks, Elephants, and Pierogi. And the subtitle of the book is Poland in 100 Words. There isn't really an author. This is made by a Polish institute. Just basically, well, there actually are authors, but again, I should have prepared this before. There are authors and there is an illustrator, but again, it's very difficult Polish names, and I don't want to mess up now because maybe I should have practiced before. But anyway, this book, the authors aren't mentioned here on the cover. This is more of a basically it's Poland in 100 words. It discusses Poland, Polish culture, and Polish just Polish life in 100 words. So if you just open to a specific page, you know, there's Rzeko, I guess it's pronounced Rzeko. It's the Polish language has letters like D and Z together, which makes a special sound. So so that's for the letter D. And then if you go to the next page, for example, of course it's also illustrated with very nice illustrations. A very beautiful book. This lady who gave it to me, she gave it to me as a gift. It was a really special gift. Okay, there's another word also with the DZ, and then it just explains what it means, what its significance to Polish culture. Let's just see, because at the beginning of the book has if I can just go to the beginning, it starts with the alphabet, and it goes through the Polish alphabet. So you'll see. So for example, there's the letter A, but then there's another A in Polish, which is, although it looks like an A, the sound is more of a nasal O, more or less like on in wrong, or the N in en route. And then, for example, there's C, and then there's the C with an accent. And then in Polish, you've got, as I mentioned, you've got letters that start with CI or CZ. This gives a Z sound, or the CI is an I sound. So the Polish alphabet is a bit unique. It's a Slavic language. And the reason why I mentioned Angelina is because she did a video. I'll link to it at the bottom. You should really watch it. She put a lot of effort into it, explaining Slavic words. Now she's of Russian origin, so the letters and the pronunciation she focuses on is more Russian rather than Polish. But again, this is for another example, the letter S in Polish. You've got the S, which is a normal S like English, but then again there's two others. There's the SI and the SZ. And the SZ, I don't know if it's in focus, but the SZ, it says, makes it sound like the English sh. So whatever time you see in Polish an S and a Z, it's sh. So that got me in trouble, because I should have known that, because I had this book, and I've read this book. I went through it. I read like a Polish a word a day, but when you go to the so I didn't have an excuse, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I should have known better when I was showing the books of an author that has the SZ in his name. Perhaps I should go into it just to help you explain what I mean. You might be a bit lost now. The author I was talking about is this author. His name is Richard Kapuczynski. So you can see the name right there at the top. It's got the RY and then the SZ. Now in my last video, I think I hauled this book. I found this at a bookstore, a used bookstore here where I live at. And when I hauled it, I pronounced it Ryszard Kapuczynski. But then Angelina very kindly corrected me and told me that the SZ in Slavic language, but specifically in Polish, is pronounced sh. So it's actually Richard Kapuczynski. This book is called The Shadow of the Sun, and the subtitle is My African Life. Perhaps I should talk about Kapuczynski a little bit. He was a Polish journalist who worked for a Polish communist newspaper and was sent around the world to do reporting. So what makes him unique is that he's one of the few international communist journalists he did a lot of his work in Africa, a lot of his reporting. So he was a communist journalist, or worked for a communist newspaper. He was a journalist who worked for a communist newspaper in Africa in the 50s and 60s. And anybody who knows the 50s and 60s in Africa was a time of great political independence for a lot of African nations. This is when they were leaving their colonialist past and forging a new path as independent nations. And of course, anybody who also knows African history knows it was never a very it was a very messy process. It wasn't a very smooth process. There was a lot of wars, a lot of civil wars, a lot of external parties involved. Basically, the Cold War, a lot of it was fought low-key in Africa, between America and the capitalist, America and Western Europe, and then the Soviet Union and the communists. So that's what makes Richard Kapuscinski very... one of the reasons he's very popular is because of his unique status as a communist commentator on third world issues. Mostly that was his specialty, focusing on third world issues in the 50s and the 60s at the height of the Cold War. So again, Angelina, I hope I got the pronunciation right now. I hope I've corrected it. Again, you should watch her video if this kind of stuff interests you, especially how to pronounce these, let's say, less well-known Slavic letters and pronunciation. You'll understand better when you watch the video, so I highly recommend that you do it. So this is one of his books. It's called The Shadow of the Sun, but I've got actually other books by Kapuscinski. The other one, also related to Africa, is this one. It's called The Emperor. This is in a nice penguin edition. And that person over there is, who don't know, is the former emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, who was deposed in a communist coup in Ethiopia and removed from power. And the Ethiopian culture and history is a very old one, very ancient. A Christian, predominantly Christian African nation, one of the early Christian states. It happened to be in Africa. It's not anywhere near Europe. And they had the emperor, who was seen almost as almost semi-divine until the 20th century, when he was deposed. He was the last one. He was deposed he was first deposed by the Italians in the Second World War. The British brought him back in power, put him back in power, and then he lost power again. I believe I have the story correctly. He was removed from power in a communist coup. So again, Richard Kapuscinski was there in Africa at the time, and this is his book. Again, I'm mentioning it, I mean, the book, the Shadow of the Sun, I don't know if it's under 200 pages, but it's not too large. And this one is even smaller. These are small books, perfect for Shorty September. Although I'm not reading them this September, again, I wanted to highlight these books and then let Angelina and everybody else know that I learned my lesson of Polish pronunciation. So that one is The Emperor. Another one, again, this one is in Asia, in the Middle East, closer to where I'm at. This one is called Shah and Shah. And this is about the last Shah of Iran, Muhammad Pahlavi, I believe. Again, Iran, very ancient country and civilization, has been ruled by a Shah from really the beginning of recorded history. Always been a monarchical system. But Pahlavi was removed from power in a coup led by the Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979, and the Kingdom of Persia, or Kingdom of Iran, became the Islamic Republic of Iran. So this is again another Kapuscinski, Richard Kapuscinski book. Again, another short one. Again, dealing with a third world potentate or king who was deposed in a sort of popular revolution. Again, the Iranian Revolution was in 1979, still in very much in the Cold War. Although he wasn't removed by a communist, I mean, the leftists supported the revolution, but the ultimate winners of the revolution were the Islamic clerics, the Ayatollahs, who are still in power in Iran. So there's that book. And then the fourth book I have of Kapuscinski, I've got a lot of his books. I should keep saying his first name, Richard Kapuscinski, because I know how to pronounce his name. This one is called The Soccer War. For those who don't know, I haven't made any videos about my sports books, specifically my soccer books. Those two shelves you see over there are mostly soccer books. It's a sub-genre of books I like reading, and these are one of the books that are in there. Again, another short book, good for Shorty September, for anybody who might be interested in reading this or reading about this subject. And again, this is very similar pattern. Also a short book, but also about a third world issue. And this one, the soccer war in question here, was a war between, just let me get the two. This one is actually based in Latin America, in Central America. Specifically, the war was between, let me just get the two countries. Kapuczynski reported on the fighting that broke out between Honduras and El Salvador in 1969, after their matches to determine which one of them would qualify for the 1970 World Cup. So Honduras and El Salvador had a football game, and the winner would qualify to the World Cup. And it became a war between the two countries. The football match ignited a war. Now, of course, it wasn't just the football and who wins and who loses. There was much bigger forces at play. Of course, Latin America, this is the height of the Cold War. I'm just reading the back, just scanning it. I'm seeing the word Bolivia. I'm seeing Salvador Allende in Chile. I'm seeing Patrice Lumumba in Congo. The name Che Guevara is mentioned. So, I think most of you are intelligent. My viewers are very intelligent. That I know for sure. Latin America and the Cold War, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s. Again, a big battleground for the Cold War between America and the Soviet Union. And so I'm not exactly 100% sure. All of these books I haven't read. They're all in my TBR, but I'm just guessing that at least one of them, I think one side, either Honduras or El Salvador, was probably pro-communist, pro-Soviet, and then another side was pro-America. So yes, it was a soccer match that ignited the war, but there's much bigger forces at play. During or that led to the conflict. So again, the soccer war, Shah and Shah, about the fall of the Shah of Iran, the Emperor, about the fall of Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, and then his general book about his life in Africa called The Shadow of the Sun, all by Richard Kapuczynski, famous Polish communist author. I'm reluctant to say communist author because I was reading his bio, his Wikipedia page. Yes, he worked for a Polish communist newspaper, and I think initially he had leftist tendencies or socialist tendencies, but he actually fell out with the Communist Party at the end, or during the events of the 1980s in Poland, the whole Solidarity movement and the fall of the Soviet system in Poland and the ushering in of a more democratic system, Lech Walesa and all of that stuff. So he actually he turned to becoming a Polish nationalist. I was also reading in his bio that he had foreseen the fall or the crumbling of the Soviet Union. One of his books, which I don't have apparently, was his travels around the Soviet Union, I think in the 80s, where he sort of predicted where he could see the end of the Soviet Union coming. At least that's what I understood from the Wikipedia entry that I read. But that book I don't have, unfortunately. I'm going to try to read those, or these, the ones that I do have first. Again, it would have been a good contender for Shorty September. Again, maybe next year if I'm still on this earth, and I still have this YouTube channel, BookTube channel. But something definitely to consider. And then just one more thing. Also related to Angelina and also related to Richard Kapuczynski. It says that Kapuczynski in his books, again, I haven't read them, but in his books it says that he is a journalist, but he mixed a lot of magical realism in his reportage, or at least in his books. That part I found interesting, because you don't usually associate magical realism with journalism. And when you see some of the blurbs, I think the blurb for this, the soccer war book, because it was in Latin Yeah, it says here there's a blurb from The Guardian. It says, if you've ever wondered how Kapuscinski managed to clock up 27 revolutions, he reported on 27 revolutions. This book tells all, delivering in sentences short and lapidary a reality that suddenly flowers in images as rich and strange as anything by Marquez. Marquez being Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who was known as the master of magical realism. And just to tie up Angelina and also JJ, when I was looking for these books in my library, I came across this by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is 100 Years of Solitude. This is an edition I have. Also a gift from a Colombian friend who gave this to me. But apparently Angelina and JJ also has a booktube channel, the Bookworm Blacksmith. Or the Blacksmith Bookworm, I always mess it up. But JJ's her name. I'll link her channel as well. And their videos. They did a buddy read of this together. But they never informed me. They never invited me. I have the book. They never called me or said, hey, would you like to join and be part of this? So I don't know. Maybe I'm not cool enough to be in the JJ Angelina book club. I think they're the cool kids and I'm just not cool enough. But I have the book. I could have participated. But apparently no, it wasn't meant to be. Maybe I'm not wanted. Who knows? But either case, I'll link to their videos discussing their buddy read of 100 Years of Solitude. I will also link to Angelina's book about pronunciation of Slavic letters, specifically Russian, but I think would be relevant even for Polish letters, which are notoriously difficult to it's not difficult, it's just they combine letters that the English or a Latin language speaker or a Anglo-Saxon Germanic English language speaker would find difficulty. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next video. All the best, BookTube. Salute.